Welcome to Litbit channel. Today we will see the poem A Different History by Sujata Bhatt. Sujata Bhatt is an Indian poet born in Ahmedabad, India in 1956 and spent early month at maternal grandmother's home. Then she grew up in Pune, India until 1968 where she grew up in a traditional Gujarat Brahmin family. Parents were writers, teachers and scientists. Her grandfather was an essayist, short story writer, and translator. Left India at age 5, her family for New Orleans, returning to India at age 8, and then left India again at the age 12. At age 8, often inspired by her childhood experience, immigrated to the United States in 1968 with family, received an MFA from the University of Iowa, writer in residence at the University of Victoria in Canada, visiting fellow at Dixon College, Pennsylvania, then lives in Bremen, Germany with her husband and daughter, then has received various awards for her work including the Commonwealth Poetry Prize in Asia and the Chumley Award. Published 6 collections of poems including Monkey Shadows and A Color of Solitude. It is a poem that details with themes of cultural identity, language and the impact of colonialization. It is autobiographical and expresses the conflict Bhatt faced between her Indian heritage and her life in the English-speaking world. The poem is structured into stanza, with the first stanza exploring the interplay between religion, nature, and human behavior in India. The second stanza explored the historical and socio-political implication of language, focusing on the history of language used as a tool of oppressions and violence. But questions how people can come to love the very language and that once caused immense sufferings, such as English in India after British colonization. That questions how people can come to love the very language that once caused immense suffering, such as English in India after British colonization. A Different History by Sujata Bhatt is a poem that explores the themes of culture, colonization, and language. The background of the poem is rooted in Bhatt's personal experience as a multilingual poet who has lived in various countries including India, Germany and the United States. The poem reflects her awareness of how colonization, particularly by the British Empire, has impacted Indian culture and language. The poem contrasts India's rich cultural heritage with the influence of colonial powers, particularly through the impositions of English language. Highlight the tensions between the preservation of traditional value and infiltrations of foreign influence, especially the English language, which become a tool of oppression, but also the modes of communication for future generations. The poem reflects on how the colonized have to adapt to the new reality where their cultural identity is in a state of flux. In essence, Bhatt's poem expresses the pain of cultural loss and the complexity of identity in post-colonial societies. It meditates on the power of language and how it shapes history, cultural identity, and the way we preserve the world. We see the poetic device of the poem. First one is personification. Great Pan is not dead. Pan, Greek god, is personified to symbolize a cultural continuity. The god also personified as they roaming freely in India. Then next one is without disturbing Saraswati. Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, is given human-like quality as if she can be disturbed by rough handling of books. Next one is metaphor. The soul has been cropped with the long scythe. The scythe metaphor represents the destructions caused by colonization, equating it to harvesting or cutting down a soul. The conqueror's phase, the colonizer phase, is symbolized as a source of violence and oppression. Next one is symbolism. Books are symbolic of knowledge and culture, treated as a sacred object. Rudeness towards a book symbolizes disrespect for tradition and learning. And Saraswati and the tree symbolize knowledge and the nature, both of which are sacred in Indian culture. Next one is rhetorical question. Which language has not been the oppressor's tongue? These questions emphasize the universality of oppressions through language. Next one is which language truly mean to murder on someone? This questions draws attention to the complexity of language as both a tool of oppressions and communication. This imagery, Bhatt used vivid imagery such as snakes and monkeys to represent gods in disguise or the Zayat Zubing to describe the violence of colonialism. Next one is repetition. The word sin is repeated to emphasize the moral weight of disrespecting books and by extensions Indian culture. The repeated questions which language reinforces the themes of language as both abrasive and complex. Next one is juxtaposition. The poem contrasts sacredness and violence, Indian culture reverence for knowledge and nature is juxtaposed with the violence of colonizations and the impositions of a foreign language. Next one is rhyme scheme of the poem. In this excerpt from Sujata Bhatt says different history, there is no regular rhyme scheme. The poem is written in free verse which allows for a more natural flow of ideas without the constraints of the traditional rhyme pattern. The lack of rhythm emphasizes the controversial tone and the complexity of the subject matter such as colonization, cultural reverence and the impact of language. Instead of rhyme, Bhatt used repetition, imagery and a rhetorical question to convey the poem's emotional depth and meaning. Let's see the gist of the poem. The poem, A Different History by Sujata Bhatt, explores the themes of cultural identity, language and the impact of colonization. The speaker reflects on the contradictions of their Indian heritage and its life is English-speaking world. The poem highlights the power dynamic of language, questions how people can come to love a language that was once imposed upon them as a tool of oppressions and grapples with the complexity of cultural identity and belonging. The lines we have been analyzing are the poignant and evocative expression of violence, trauma, and erosions that occurs when the dominant culture imposing its language, value, and beliefs on the subjugated people. The poem suggests that the legacy of colonialism is a kind of soul crushing, identity erasing force that leaves deep scars on individuals and communities. The speakers seems to be searching for the way to reclaim and honors the cultural heritage that we has been lost or suppressed and to find a language that can express the trauma and pain of that experience. Throughout the uses of vivid imagery, metaphor and symbolism, the poem creates a sense of urgency and necessity around the need to remember and honor the histories and cultures that have been marginalized or erased. It is a powerful call to action urging us to confront the ongoing impact of colonialism and to work towards a more just and equitable future. Thank you viewers. Thanks for watching this video.